Nothing we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it.
Good morning, everybody. Cowboy here, 8:30 a.m. EST. And yeah, NASDAQ looks like it might be in a little bit of trouble. Now, that's short-term trouble. I'm not saying the market's going to melt down or the world's going to end or any of that. But it does look like it's possibly going to break some lows. The low I'm concerned about is not this low at 23,040. The low I'm concerned about is at 22,776. And there's a corresponding low on Bitcoin that we're going to take a look at very shortly as well. Now, Ethereum is doing pretty well so far, but Bitcoin itself is kind of holding down as well. Now, Bitcoin's situation might mean that the altcoins are going to do well. So we'll jump into that in just a minute. But before we get into all those things, you get the free algo link is in the description. Go in there, give us a name, fake name, real name. We don't care. And we will send you an algo. You'll have it immediately. We'll put you on a list to send you our notification for whenever we do decide to get that that workshop done. Kind of waiting for the dead of summer to end. I know I've been having reasons to push it back, but that's kind of the main one at this point. So that said, let's go ahead and analyze from an algo standpoint the NASDAQ. Also, we did just have some news come out and it appears to be not that effectual on the charts. So we're going to take a look at that unemployment data as well. Now, the NASDAQ, it does have a lot of reasons to flatten out. Ultimately, it's still a little bullish, but that bullishness is up against resistance, we'll say, right? So right now, the NASDAQ, I do believe, now I called this out, by the way, for the Algo Factory members. So if I were to actually undo, there, that's the prediction I made for Algo Factory members yesterday, that it would come down. Now, over the, not over the weekend, but on Monday, if you look at my Monday's prediction, I predicted it would head down and sideways, but it really did break down after some of the news on Monday. So the next look at what I predicted is pretty much what happened. The price is heading down. Now, will it bounce here on this low and head up, or will it actually break down below and head to this 22,700? Now, it is the stock market. The stock market does tend to be held up. You could say artificially, I don't know. We'll see what happens, right? The data that came out last week was very jarring to the market. We had the CPI that was kind of flat. The market got very hopeful, made all-time highs right here, right? And then the PPI, it's very similar to the CPI, came out and it was extremely hot. And the indication was that, oh, maybe we will not see a rate cut. Maybe the money will not get cheap. Maybe money will not flow into the markets like we thought it would. And now we're seeing the market head down, and on a high time frame there is a bit of weakness. So for now, I do think price may continue to head down towards this 23,000, and how it reacts at that is going to tell us a lot. Initially, I did think we would see a bounce, an attempt to reclaim, and then a move down. We'll see how that moves. Let's take a quick look at Bitcoin. By the way, if you are in the audience, feel free to ask some questions in the comments section. Bitcoin is at a point where it has created a bit of a range, right? It's not a very clean range just yet. Let me delete these. They're no longer really that relevant. What I am going to do first, before we assess the range, is to take a look at where the liquidity is on Bitcoin. So let's do that. We'll go over to the Kingfisher. Hopefully it's operating properly today. It can be a little temperamental at times. Might not be able to see this too well. Yep, there we go. Usually I can make this screen get much bigger, and today it is not doing that. That's fine. I can still get the data and tell you what it is. Okay, so let's do this, and price is here. So there's a lot of liquidity, a little bit higher than the price, and I know you can't see it too well on the screen. It's right behind my head. So from 115 really to 118, but the big liquidity is from 115 and a half to 116.3. So let me go back to the chart so you can see it properly. 115 and a half to 116.3. I'll see if I can get the Kingfisher fixed so you can see it a little bit better. But we have the data, and that is what matters. So from about here there is a bit of liquidity where that blue box is, and price may want to drive up to grab that liquidity. That's where most of the liquidity is on the chart, and I'll change that to yellow as I usually do for such things. And really, there's not much more liquidity to speak of in the vicinity of price. There's a little bit down at, like, say 110 and more at 105. We can mark that on the chart. It doesn't hurt to have that. Let's put this, excuse me, I'm going to code these the way that I code them. And then we'll put a little bit down at 110, and we'll code that yellow for liquidity. And then 112 is just a bottom of the range. And then we'll throw a little bit down at 105. So if price were to head down, if the algos got bearish, then it'll probably head to this 110 level and then possibly 105. I don't think that's going to happen. We're going to assess that here momentarily, but Bitcoin is creating what appears to be this range between about 112, really 111.8, and then let's say the all-time high, right? It's not that easy to define the range just yet, but we'll just use the all-time high, and that's going to be the current range right now for Bitcoin. Okay. Now, if that breaks out of that, we'll reassess. But right now, price may want to bounce off the bottom of that and then bounce off the top. In the meantime, if the algos do get even short-term bullish, good chance Bitcoin may just reach up to grab this number right about here. Okay. So that might not happen right now. It might be that Bitcoin just kind of flattens out, goes sideways, doesn't do a whole lot, and then grabs it, right? And then, of course, the liquidity landscape can change in the meantime. So we just know this liquidity is there. We'll look at the algos briefly. Now, for those of you who are concerned that Bitcoin will head down, there is a little bit of comfort in that the volatility is pretty low at the moment. So we are seeing what I like to call algorithmic support, where price may very well bounce on 112. But the way to look at Bitcoin right now, the key way to look at Bitcoin, the very simple, just a heuristic one can use, right? A simple rule is that if Bitcoin bounces at 112 and gets strong, it's probably going to go back up towards 124-ish. If Bitcoin breaks below 112 and grabs 110 and stays below 112 for at least like a day or two, then you might see Bitcoin head down a little further back into this prior range down here. Now, none of these things are really bad. If you're somebody who is really worried about Bitcoin, or you want it to stay high, look, the volatility is pretty low, right? So even if price does break into this lower range, there's a decent chance it'll play around and come back up. If I were to look at the algos right now, the high time frame for Bitcoin does have a fair amount of bullishness left, right? But it does need to reset. And that reset, I think, when I say reset, I mean there needs to be either a distribution or an accumulation. Price needs to go sideways for a while. That's what that means. So it's probably going to go sideways between 112 and 124-ish, or it's going to go sideways maybe between like 98 and 110, 108, something like that. So we'll just see how that goes. In the meantime, Bitcoin dominance is pretty bearish. And this Bitcoin dominance right here, it's not looking like it really wants to head up. So what that's going to do is push things like Ethereum upwards. Ethereum, here's a prediction I did yesterday, that if it can rise from here, then we might see it break its all-time high possibly, which is 48.65. That's its all-time high. It bounced off the all-time high basically a few days ago and headed down. Now, if it can gather steam just below the all-time high, Ethereum might make its way up as high as 56.50 before it gets tired again. We'll see how all that goes. Now, the news really, I'm not going to spend too much time on the news that just came out because the markets are not really reacting that strong. Remember, this is August. This is when everything really gets very quiet in markets for the most part, and news that normally will cause markets to fluctuate in a very strong way, that news is not as strong as it could be. So we just had the manufacturing PMI and unemployment claims come out. Actually, PMI is not for another hour or so. Unemployment claims was not too different to what the estimate was. The estimate was 226,000 unemployment claims, and it's like 235,000. So it's really not much of a news event as far as always, is price going to be affected in markets, right? If we look at the euro, very little action right there, which is where you would normally see such things, the euro or the USD versus the JPY, or things like that. So the news right now is pretty dull. The manufacturing PMI might have some kind of data coming out. Well, it's going to have data coming out, but it might have significant data. We'll see about it. But markets are just getting really quiet. And that's very, very typical for late August. Not a lot going on. And if I go to the low time frame on the NASDAQ, you'll see that the data coming out on the NASDAQ is very, very nothing burger, right? A little bit of a push up because that data is dollar week data. So, it would normally cause the NASDAQ to go up. If you look at the euro on the low time frame, the euro went up as a result. So anything against the dollar is going to get a little boost, but really not much to talk about right now. Of course, we have the PMI data coming out. The stock market hasn't opened. We're just gonna have to see how that goes. So we are at the end of the private live lab. I'm going to go ahead and move over to the. I'm sorry. Let's rephrase that. We're at the end of the public live lab, right? So, Tuesday through Thursday at Algo Factory, what we do is a private live lab where we continue this conversation for our private members, and they ask me all kinds of stuff. They ask a few of the gorilla things. They ask us, what do we, what's going to happen with this crypto? What's going to happen with this, whatever. I mean, it could be a favorite stock. They might want to see what's going to happen with oil. I'll do an analysis like you've seen me do here on the screen. And a lot of people use that data as part of their, research for trading. And it's pretty darn valuable. I know V the Gorilla, who really has a strong handle on what's going on around the world, what's going on with precious metals, and what's going on with Bitcoin in particular. He will come in and really give us some deep data on what's going on as well. In fact, he should be showing up any minute. So thank you all for watching. Get the free algo, links in the description. Just go in there, give us a real name, fake name. We don't care. Drop an email. We'll send you the algo. We'll send you that list for the workshop that I've been talking about for several weeks now. And I don't know, maybe September. Sorry, August is already over. Markets are so slow that I don't know that a live trading workshop is going to be worth it right now. Markets are just dead, and that's typical for late August. Very slow markets on the forex side of things. So thank you all for watching. We will see you on Tuesday. Monday is when I put out my market report, my forecast for the next week. So pay attention to that. And by the way, if you were to go ahead and get the free algo and do the link, I will send you that market report into your email as well. So thank you all for watching, and we will catch you on the flip side. And never forget,
join us or die.
Just kidding. We love you, and we'll see you next week.